All right, Shalom. It's your brother Koshab coming back at you with another lesson. Before I get started, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak Wadash, and Shalom, Barakim, Labacharium. All right, which is peace and blessings to the hopefully elect. All right, as well as those that believe in the gospel and may you endure it to the end, Lord willing. All right, and I just want to get into this lesson. A couple articles. I believe the brother out of Dallas went into this article, all right, which I was watching. Was this yesterday? All right, and I was listening to, all right, the elder Apostle Tahar go into it a little bit, all right, which I was already planning on doing a lamb back, all right, off the lesson, which I went into yesterday. Just basically going into the the Monroe Doctrine, all right, in which, what this guy is doing, he's getting ready to try to look like take over the whole Western Hemisphere, all right, and he's invoking something called the Monroe Doctrine in order to do it, all right. Now, I'm gonna get into this article. It's two articles I want to grab, all right, because both are represented, all right, on each side, okay. One is from what it is, Greenland, all right. One is from their point of view, and one is from DJ, the mouth of the devil himself, all right. Now this says Trump from Zero Hedge. It says Trump wants NATO. Without America, there is no alliance, all right. Without America, there is no alliance, man, all right. And hey, man, he actually has a point, all right, because America, you other nations, all right, especially European nations, wouldn't stand a chance, all right, against Russia, China, all right, without having the U.S. of A., all right, on your side, right, which he has a point, all right. He's actually right about that, But the point is, they have made an alliance, all right, and this now, he's stepping on the toes, all right, of these nations that he's made an alliance with, all right, and Denmark is actually a part of NATO, okay. Now, I'm gonna read this one first because it keep tripping. Right now, the headline, it says Danish Prime Minister says a U.S. takeover of Greenland would mark the end of NATO, right? In which, if y'all are allies, why can't you just sit down at the table and discuss, what are you trying to get out of it? That's just if you're allies, right? But it says Danish Prime Minister met whatever, right? So it says her comments came in response to the U.S. DT renewed call for a strategic mineral-rich Arctic island to come under U.S. control, all right, in the aftermath of the weekend military operation in Venezuela, all right. Now I'm gonna jump down a little bit. It says right here in the third paragraph, for Derrickson, that's why I did this one first, I keep tripping these pop-ups. It says, for Derrickson and her Greenland counterpart, Jens Frederick Nielsen, blasted the president's comments and warned of catastrophic consequences. Numerous European leaders expressed solidarity with them, right? So you can see that NATO is obviously divided over this matter, all right? And as it says in Mark chapter 3, verse 24, if Satan be divided against Satan, he had nothing but an end. Let's get that real quick, all right, before we get into this Revelation 17, all right? It's the book of Mark chapter 3. In verse 26, it says, and if Satan rise up against if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand but had an end, all right. And we know, all right, the working elites are the physical counterparts of the spiritual demon Satan, man, all right. So if they're rising up against each other, how can they stand, all right, and they're going to be divided, all right, and ultimately an end is going to come through this, you see. But it says if the United States chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops. That is including our NATO. All right. And the acronyms for the abbreviation of NATO, it stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. All right. Formerly known as, I believe, the European Economic Commission. All right. EEC or something like that. All right. Something around those terms, you know. But it says that is including our NATO industrial security that has been provided since the end of the Second World War, right? Which that's why I was listening to Apostle Hart going to it, right? You had this whole alliance come about in around what was it? About 1949, right? 1948. You know, same time as around the 1948ers, man. All right, after the Second World War, you know, because the U.S. actually came in to with their military, all right, to help out these different nations in Europe, right? But it says Trump called repeatedly during his presidential transition in early months of his second term for U.S. jurisdiction over Greenland, right? That's what I was saying. You know, he been calling for Greenland, all right? But now people think he actually gonna do it, all right, after the whole thing he pulled off in Venezuela, right? And he actually came out and said something about it again, you know? But it says Trump, let me see. I'm gonna jump down to a little bit. It says comments Sunday, all right, we're gonna read his comments too. It says his comments Sunday, including telling reporters, let's talk about Greenland in 20 days, further deepened fears that the U.S. was planning an intervention in Greenland in the near future. He heaped to himself all peoples, man. All right, the lands, everything. All right. It says, what was that? Oh, there we go. It says, second paragraph now. For Derrickson, whatever, also said Trump should be taken seriously when he says he wants Greenland. We will not accept a situation where we and Greenland are threatened this way. All right. Nielsen in a news conference Monday said Greenland cannot be compared to Venezuela. He urged his constituents to stay calm and united. All right. And which, you know, is all speculation right now. All right, but it was a lot of speculation going on with Maduro, man. All right, and what he, you know, the things that he was saying, and it comes to find out that he was actually working on the an agreement, you know, to try to trade oil with the U.S. You know, something of that nature. I just seen yesterday, you know, but that's what happened. You dance with the devil, right? Now it says Trump warns NATO. Without America, there is no alliance, all right? And let me get this real quick. It's Revelation chapter 17, verse 1. It says, and there came one of the seven angels which had 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, come hither, and I will shew thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, all right? We know the great whore, all right, as it's going to explain later in the chapter, all right, is Babylon the Great, all right, which we know is America. All right. And, you know, that sitting upon many waters is being the rule, all right, or the ruler, all right, or the top dog over all of these nations. All right. That's what these nations are represented as. Many waters, man. All right. Which is why when you have NATO and the EU, all right, and we're still constantly expanding, right, because it was, I believe, 17, but now it's, you know, way more than that, you know. When you go into Germania Major, Germania Minor, you know, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Britain, you know, all of these different nations. You know, it's kind of rusty on that, but, you know, it's not including Russia and China, though, right? But they have expanded from just the 7 heads and the 10 horns, you know. But verse 2, it says, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication, you see? And that's what all of these nations, all right, including Denmark, Greenland, Okay, all of these different NATO nations in Europe, all right, they've been drunken, all right, with the wine of democracy, all right, that's been pushed on them from the US of A, okay? And that's why the scriptures even tell you, which we're going to get it in a second, all right, Lord will, I just want to get a little bit of this article out the way. There's a point I wanted to get in here. It says President Trump says that Russia and China have zero fear of NATO, in which they don't, right? The only reason that they haven't made moves on NATO, all right, is because of their alliance with America, okay? That's where all of their strength lies at, all right, with the military of America, all right? These, as it says in Daniel, all right, the teeth, you know, this American army, you know, it's strong. It's the, you know, it's still the most powerful military on earth, you know. It says, without the U.S. being in the alliance, try to skip down a little bit, which comes not only, as the White House says, it intends to acquire Greenland, which has set up a diplomatic fight with European NATO allies, but also soon on the levels of the ultra-controversial U.S. military ouster of Venezuela's Maduro. Trump in the post expressed doubt that NATO would be there for us if we really need them, right? So this is showing you how this devil was actually already thinking. So, you know, he might just say, fuck it, and, you know, and go take it, right? What are they going to do? Are they going to wage war against us? You see? That's their mindset. That's how they are thinking, right? It says, and simultaneously touted that we will always be there for NATO, even if they won't be there for us. He focused his explanation on Ukraine, saying that without my involvement, Russia would have all of Ukraine right now. And he's probably right. If the U.S. wasn't sending, you know, these different machines, weapons, right, guns, things that they need to actually still have to stand a fight, you know, because Russia was steamrolling these dudes, man. You know, they were steamrolling Ukraine, all right, before they had actually got help from the U.S. And that whole issue with Ukraine was they trying to become a part of NATO, you see? And Russia like, not in my backyard, man. You know, same thing with Venezuela and Cuba, all right, towards the United States. But them being allies with Russia, not in my backyard, you see? But it's all political theater, man, all right? These antics and these different things that this guy is saying is ultimately going to lead to the destruction of America, all right? Because these nations that actually have nuclear arsenals, that actually have a strong army, a stronger military, are actually going to come against America, all right? Even Great Britain, man. You see, that's why it tells you that in Jeremiah 50, right? That even your mother shall be sore confounded of you, all right? Jeremiah chapter 50. And verse 11, it says, because you were glad, because you rejoiced, O ye destroyers of mine heritage. All right, who destroyed the heritage? All right, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. All right, who are the Israelites according to the Bible? Who have destroyed your heritage, man? Your enemy, Esau, Edom. All right, the devil himself, man. So-called white man. You see, it says, O ye destroyers of mine heritage, because ye are grown fat as the heifer at grass and bellow as bulls, your mother shall be sore confounded. She that bare you shall be ashamed. Right, in which, you know, America comes out of Britain, you know, hence is why they had those what you call them, the Confederate Wars. All right, that's what all of these different, you know, wars, you know, especially here in the South, you know, was America breaking out from Great Britain, man. All right, I believe Spain was involved, you know, but it says, behold, the hindermost of the nations shall be a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert. You see, that's what's going to happen here in America. It's going to be a wilderness, a dry land, and a desert, right? And this is why it says, verse 13, because of the wrath of Yahweh, it shall not be inhabited. It shall be wholly desolate. And everyone that goeth by Babylon shall be astonished and hiss at all her plagues. You see? It says, verse 14, put yourselves in array against Babylon round about. All ye that bend the bow, shoot at her. Spare no arrows, for she has sinned against Yahweh. All right, and it's not talking about physical arrows, man. All right, it's talking about nuclear missiles. All right, and it says, all ye that bend the bow. All right, all these nations that have nuclear arsenals, all right, they're going to get their shoot their shots off at America. All right. It's going to be overkill here in Babylon the Great, man. You see? It says spare no arrows. So it ain't going to be no more, oh, I'm going to save it for later. No, man. These people going to empty the clip. All right? But let's get back to the Revelation 17. All right. I think I had it over in the blue letter. All right. We're going to jump down a little bit, all right, then back up to Jeremiah 15 and 13, all right. Now, this is Revelation chapter 17, verse 15, and he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. You see, backing up the point, all right, the waters being people, all right, the other nations, man. 16, it says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, all right, was this the 10 horns? It represents NATO and the EU, okay? These shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. You see? Backing up the Jeremiah 50, man. This place is going to be utterly burned with fire. The nations that are in alliances with America, right? Even though, you know, let's say, for instance, the thing with Trump and Greenland, it dies down, right? These people still have these thoughts in the back of their heads. Like, man, look, this dude still want to take over us, right? And ultimately, it's going to be, they're going to do it, all right, because of this verse right here, verse 17, for the Most High had put in their hearts, all right, which your heart goes into what? Your la'ab, man, all right, which is your mind. So the Lord is going to put it in their mind the same way that he's going to, you know, as it says in Ezekiel the 38th chapter, all right, when it deals with Russia, Gog and Magog, all right, which is, you know, biblically known as Russia, all right, that he's going to what? He's going to put the hooks into their jaws, man. All right, showing you that the Lord is ultimately the one that's in control of these things, man. All right, ain't nobody else. You see? It says, for the Most High put it in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast until the words of our power shall be fulfilled. You see? Until the words of our power be fulfilled. And right, and we're seeing prophecy be fulfilled as we speak, man. You know? We're seeing this thing go down in real time. We're seeing the nations getting ready to hate the whore, man. All right? And what's that whore is America. You see?